All right, so here we're looking at algebra notes for completing the square with GCFs. So again, what completing the square is the process that turns standard form and if you recall, the standard form of a quadratic equation is that y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So it turns standard form into vertex form. Into vertex, aka shifted form. And again, that vertex form that we've been looking at is the y equals parentheses. Just kidding, I forgot the a on the outside. A parentheses x minus h close parentheses quantity squared plus k. So that's the whole purpose of completing the square. This time, the only difference is that we've got some GCFs. So looking at this first example here, kind of what happens if we're giving an equation and it's not in standard form. So hopefully you guys can recognize that this is indeed a quadratic equation. We would start by double distributing first. Because you need to put it in standard form. In order to see what the A, B, and C values are, you have to put it in standard form first. So I'm just going to take a hot sec, turn that into x squared plus 4x plus 5x plus 20, which we can then turn into x squared plus 9x. Because again, it's not in standard form if it's not simplified all the way. All those like terms have to be combined. Okay, so once we have this equation in standard form, we can just go through and do that completing the square process as normal. So your first step going to be to group your x terms together, that x squared and 9x. After doing so, you've got to take your magic number, or find your magic number in your little bubble. So remember that magic number is b divided by 2 quantity squared. So 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. And then 4.5, it's important that you're doing the quantity, those parentheses. Because again, if you type -3 squared into your calculator, it's going to come back as a -9, when in fact you know it should be positive. 4.5 squared turns into 20.25. Once you have that magic number, you add that to the inside of your parentheses, and then subtract it from the outside of your parentheses in order to keep that balance. Your new equation, still in those groupings, x squared plus 9x plus the 20 and 25 hundredths, and that turns out to be -1/4. Up next is the factoring part. This is why we take the extra time to do that magic number off to the side, because these parentheses are actually going to factor into x plus, because it's a positive, 4.5 quantity squared, and then just carry everything else down. So there we go. We have this in vertex form. Vertex form here. This guy was standard form. And if you're being, writing down what the actual vertex is, -4.5, because we need to take the opposite of the number inside of the parentheses, and -0.25. So there's your example number 1 if you are given an equation not in standard form.